Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Okay, happy Thursday everybody. First up, we need to start with a very heavy and disturbing development. Tong Zhao, a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace Global Security Program and a visiting research scholar at Princeton University, has penned a piece in Foreign Affairs this week, warning that forces inside China could be leading to a war over Taiwan, and that this risk is the highest it has been in decades. The piece has been widely read in policymaking circles across Western and Asian capitals. I had brief interactions with Zhao when I lived in Beijing. I found him to be a very grounded and sober gentleman. As we will see shortly too, his comments could very much undermine his work in the PRC in the future, or worse. Indeed, he is being very brave by publishing this piece. This should indicate just how serious he believes his observations are, and how important it is to communicate these to an international audience. Zhao writes well, and his piece speaks for itself. Quote, "The dynamics among China's political leadership, its policy elite and the broader public have generated an internal feedback loop that is not entirely within Xi's comprehension or control. This could result in China's being fully mobilized for war even without Xi deciding to attack Taiwan. Xi's assertive rhetoric, combined with his demand for absolute obedience, has produced an echo chamber in Beijing. His repeated emphasis on the need for unification with Taiwan and his nationwide campaign to encourage the public to revere the military and admire force has generated strong public incentives for civilian and military officials to mobilize themselves as if war were inevitable. Chinese leaders are dangerously overconfident. As media outlets muzzle any doubts about the use of force to achieve unification, the leadership could easily perceive a lack of dissent as widespread public support for its aspirations regarding Taiwan. Furthermore, Chinese propaganda agencies' promotion of anti-American narratives have created a growing sense among the public and policy elite that the United States poses a threat and that a showdown with Washington is inevitable. This puts pressure on Chinese leaders to stress the importance of war preparation, which risks setting the country on a self-fulfilling path to conflict. Policy recommendations by scholars and public intellectuals likely reinforce Xi's belief that his push for unification is morally just and practically feasible. Prominent Chinese experts put forward theories that the United States is actively seeking a military crisis over Taiwan to contain China's rise. A widely held belief within China's expert community is that the United States' true objective in the Ukraine conflict is to weaken Russia, and that it is similarly keen on instigating a military conflict over Taiwan with the goal of gradually eliminating China as its primary competitor. These theories have reinforced a public perception that China faces an external threat from the United States. The US government should refine its messaging to counter the misperception that it is blocking unification to hinder China's successful development and national rejuvenation. When discussing the Taiwan issue, the United States and its allies should emphasize one vital message: that they respect, welcome, and support the Chinese people's growing contribution to the international community, and that achieving a non-coercive resolution to the Taiwan issue is in China's best interest. Most important, the United States and its allies should not dismiss mainstream Chinese narratives about the threat posed by Western countries as mere propaganda. These narratives largely reflect genuine, if mistaken, beliefs and are becoming more deeply embedded in China's foreign policy as a result of the country's internal feedback loop. The international community needs a coherent strategy to dispel misperceptions and convince the Chinese public and leadership of the benefits and feasibility of open-minded, good-faith discussions on the Taiwan issue. Although challenging, this is what it will take to prevent an increasingly likely war with catastrophic consequences for all." End quote. Before we move on, a reaction to this piece from a Washington-based American China expert. Quote, "It is not clear how outsiders can change this dynamic. I am skeptical of the idea that somehow Xi has lost control of the hardliners, nor do I see how outsiders can dispel misperceptions and convince the Chinese public and leadership of the benefits and feasibility of open-minded good-faith discussions on the Taiwan issue, when all information into and inside the PRC is so tightly controlled and censored. As Tong Zhao writes, the domestic political dynamics are all moving in the opposite direction. In addition to the political dynamics, there are also economic ones. The PRC has a large and growing military-industrial complex, and some people and companies are making a lot of money from the hardening that is going on across society. Can Tong Zhao return to the PRC after writing this piece?" End quote. Next up, we move to a lighter topic, the EV industry and the Chinese economy. If you are getting some value from today's episode, don't forget to hit that like button. Sharing, subscribing is a massive help as well. For anyone who can go the extra mile and help keep this channel sustainable, allow me to continue making episodes like this, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. Thank you so much, everybody, for the ongoing support. Yesterday, we discussed China's trade numbers for April. There are a few extra points worth noting here. The data showed that automobiles led the jump in China's overseas shipments for the first 4 months of this year. It also showed that Southeast Asian nations were China's biggest trading partners in the first 4 months of this year. Trade with ASEAN countries reached $305 billion, up 5.6% from a year ago, and accounting for 15.7% of China's overall trade. This brings us to the next development, increasing market penetration of Chinese EVs into the Southeast Asian market and the momentum of Chinese EVs generally. Shanghai-based EV maker Holzon New Energy Automobile Co. has announced that it will start production in Thailand to sell in the Southeast Asian market. Holzon signed an agreement with a local Thai firm last week to produce its Netta 5 model locally starting next year. Thailand represents Southeast Asia's largest market for passenger EVs and has become a popular battleground for production and marketing. In 2021, Thailand became the first country in the region to offer cash subsidies for imported passenger electric cars. The country also boasts an impressive supply chain and factory build-out for automobile production, built up over years by mostly Japanese investment. Thailand isn't alone in the region, however. BYD, China's biggest EV brand, has also unveiled plans to produce electric vehicles in Vietnam. The company plans to form its own local supply chain and factory build-out in the country, giving it a competitive advantage versus other EV makers, whether Chinese, Japanese, Korean or others, in the growing yet increasingly cutthroat EV market of Southeast Asia. The Shenzhen-based BYD is also building its first overseas production facility in Thailand. EV production is fast becoming big business for Chinese brands. According to data from Chinese customs, the outbound shipment value of EVs, lithium-ion batteries and solar batteries, surged by 54.8% in US dollar terms during the first quarter of this year, year-on-year, reaching $38.5 billion US dollars. And their share among all of China's exports increased to 4.7% in the quarter from 3% a year earlier. A Monday report from SNE Research found that mainstream Chinese battery makers supplied 29.6% of batteries used for electric vehicles in non-China markets in the first 3 months. South Korea remained the largest EV battery supplier in markets outside of China, with a share of 49% in the first quarter. Japanese companies accounted for 19.5% of the market. Established car brands are also increasingly viewing Chinese electric vehicle production as serious competition. Quote, "For me, the biggest danger for electric vehicle prices is the Chinese coming in because they are coming with quite competitive prices and with very good vehicles." End quote. But some industry commentators, pointing to excessive capacity issues and intensifying deglobalization of supply chain trends, are asking whether the export momentum in China in this industry can be sustained. Quote, "The prices of raw materials in the new energy sector have kept falling for the past few months. Many feel the whole market will soon reach, or has already got to, its peak. The current inventory is too large and cannot be sold out even in the next 3 years. From raw materials to the final products, everyone in the industry knows that." End quote. The future of EV production and consumption will be an increasingly important topic, not just in Asia but around the world, and we will continue to follow it as it relates to China as we go forward. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much everybody for watching. Have a wonderful day wherever you are, and I will see you all tomorrow.